Let me unmute myself. And if everyone else could mute yourselves while, you can unmute yourselves if you have a question or something, interrupt me if you need it, but just so we don't have background noise. My name's Austin. I've been working with the WebAssign product for over a decade, and I'm part of the technical content support team for WebAssign. And we are people who've all, there are 4 people on my team. One of them, Brock, is actually on this call too. We're doing another webinar similar to this in about a month together. And so he's going to sit in and answer any questions you have. If you put them in chat or something, he'll be able to respond to those too. Everyone on my team has been working with WebAssign for over a decade, and we have content experience. We're all subject matter experts in various fields and disciplines, mathematics, statistics, physics. And you can contact us if you are interested in creating your own questions, or if you have questions about the content of WebAssign. If you think there might be a problem with one of the questions, if you simply want to know how a question is grading, why was your student's answer accepted or not accepted? If you think there are any kind of pedagogical things that could be changed about the question, you can contact us as well. I'll send you some information after this presentation about how you can contact our team and the various reasons why you can contact our team. Today, we're going to go over how to create questions in WebAssign. I'm going to give you an overview of how to create 3 different question types in WebAssign. You should be able to use this to create a variety of increasingly complex questions of your own, and you'll also have a much better understanding of how WebAssign questions are created. So you'll have a better understanding of why WebAssign might be doing something or how a question is operating. And you should be able to also get a better idea of how to take questions from existing questions from WebAssign and modify them to your own needs. So I'm going to talk about a few. You'll see me looking over here to my right. That's because I have my notes over here. I'm used to doing this in the office, and we got a whole presentation set up. So you'll have to bear with me as I look off screen. There were a few things that I wanted to discuss initially, some best practices that we always recommend people do when they're creating or beginning to create questions in WebAssign. First of all, you'll see me do all of these things throughout the presentation. One thing is to write the entire question out on paper. This is one of the best things that you can do to get it really in your mind about how you want this thing to look, how you want the question to look, how you want students to think about it. Write it out as you would a question that you were going to be putting onto a test, including the complete solution, so you have that already written out too. It's also a good time to come up with some kind of naming convention. It's a good idea to have a consistent naming convention. I'll give you an example of that. And also to keep those names in a separate document so you can reference them later, make it easier to find. WebAssign organizes your questions for you, but having your own list of questions organized is very valuable. I do it too when I make my own stuff. You should work in steps, start simply, and then add different parts to it as you sort of modify the question and evolve it. You'll see that throughout this presentation, I'll start with a very simple question, then I'll add some randomization to it and some more algorithmic type stuff. Good idea to preview your work often and save it. You'll see me do that too. Throughout the presentation, I'll be previewing it. Another thing is our online help system for WebAssign. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. I'm sharing my whole screen, so I apologize if my colleagues send me messages. This is my WebAssign screen here. And the help system, my screen may look a little bit different from yours when you're in WebAssign. It all works the same. There's a question mark help link up here in the upper right corner. If you're in Cengage Unlimited, it's still just a little question mark bubble. This instructor help is very good. The person who wrote this, I've been working with him for as long as I've been working with WebAssign, and this is all very, very good documentation, and it's the first place I go when I have a question about how to do something in WebAssign. Before I even ask my colleagues, I look in the documentation, and one of the reasons why is because it gives a lot of examples, particularly if you're going to create your own questions. I'm just going to show you one quick example here. If you're wanting to create fraction questions, this gives you step-by-step instructions, tells you the pieces of the code that you might need, why you might need them, best practices. And then at the bottom, it will even give you not just one example question, but I think there are 3 example questions in this. There's an example question here, and then a slightly more complicated example question here, and then an even more complicated example question here. You can find all of these questions and use them as your own examples or templates. They're a great place to start if you're looking to try modifying existing WebAssign questions too. All right, so let me pull up my notes again.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
The one you just demonstrate that when we want to write our own question, what kind of language is that one?
I'm going to go over all of that. You'll see it.
Okay.
Most of that was Perl. We don't use a lot of Perl. It's pretty simple, but I'll show you that in this presentation. In fact, that's
also, can you tell us where you clicked to get that window?
Sure. Yeah, it was just this this help link up here.
Wait, I don't see it. Yeah. Hang on, I can't see it.
Top right.
It's in the top.
Oh, there we go.
Top right corner.
My screen was
the Zoom thing was over there. Yeah.
Everybody was over there. Okay.
I've had to move it around too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, that is a great place to go for first help on anything. That's what I do before I even bother anyone else on my team. Okay, let's take a look at the WebAssign question editor. To create a question in WebAssign, you click the Create button and then click Question. This is WebAssign's question editor. I'll talk about the different parts of this. This is the question name. This is where you would type the name of the question. I'll give you an example of a naming convention that you may want to use. You could say homework 1.1, and then you could have homework 1.2, homework, so forth and so on. This is about as simple as you could get for a naming convention, but it's a good idea to have some kind of naming convention instead of just a bunch of words. Have some kind of number or ordinality to it. It'll help you organize them. So this is the question mode. This is where you're going to select the question mode. The question mode is how the student is going to enter their answer. We're going to go over 3 different question modes today. The 3 we're going to go over today are numerical. So in a numerical mode question, we're expecting a student to enter some kind of number. They're going to type in a number on their keyboard, and that's what we're expecting them to enter. We'll go over multiple choice. This is how students are going to select one correct option from several multiple choice options. And then symbolic mode. This is if you want students to enter their answer using symbols like X's, Y's, and variables, or thetas and pi, for example, and other symbols. This is the question field. This is where you're going to be typing text to the student that's going to be displayed to them. Anything you type here, largely anything you type here, is going to be displayed to the student if that's what you want. So you'll put instructions and everything the student will see. The answer field is where you're going to type the answer. What goes into the answer field depends on the mode. And so, for example, if you choose numerical mode, your answer key is going to be some kind of number. If it's symbolic, there are going to be symbols in it. If it's multiple choice, you're going to have multiple options in the answer field. We'll cover all of those.
Oh, Austin,
Yes.
One question. When you say symbolic, what do you mean symbolic?
I'll show you. I'll go over that mode. Symbols, there would be things. So if the student was going to enter an answer that's, say, 3x squared or something like that, something that has an x in it where they're representing some kind of mathematics, 3x squared, or the natural log of 5 over y or something like that.
So your numerical means just purely number.
Just a number.
Anything, yep. If it's not number, like if it's 2 pi or 3x cubed, that will count as a symbolic.
Yes, and I'll show you all of that. The question field here and the solution field here are very similar in the type of text that you can put in there. They accept HTML. You can pretty much put anything into a question and solution field that you would put on a web page. For example, you can embed YouTube videos and things like that very easily.
Austin, can I ask a question, please?
Sure, yes, of course.
Yeah, what about if I have a question that is both a numerical and then symbolic? I mean, part of the answer is numerical, part is symbolic. How do I go?
Yeah, that would be a different multi-mode question. Once I finish showing you the different parts of the question editor, I'll go into how to create those different modes.
Okay, okay.
So this you can put in the question and solution field, anything that you would be able to put on a web page that you would want students to see. You can embed images, graphs, things like that in there. So let's start by creating a simple numerical mode question. I'm going to select numerical from the modes. And we first need to give the student some kind of instructions, something to do. So we're going to tell them to complete the calculation. And now I'm going to type a calculation for the student to complete. 5 times 3 plus 7 times 2. So we're going to give the student now a place to enter their answer. This is the less than underscore and then greater than sign. This is what we call an answer box or an answer blank. Wherever you put this in the question, this is where the box is going to appear for the student to enter their answer. So let's preview the question and see what we have. This does not look like we typed it out. We have things here on one line, and we've got this weird symbol here instead of a question answer box. So even though I put enter onto my, use the enter key to add some vertical space here, it didn't display because the question field expects you to use some HTML to change the format and the layout. The amount of HTML we use is extremely minimal. And in this case, I think I'm only going to show you one HTML tag, and it's this one. And this is a line break tag. It just will display a line break when you put that in there. I'm going to put 2 of them. And now if we test preview, we'll see that this has created some vertical space, 2 little carriage returns to change the vertical layout. That's really all the HTML I'm going to show you here today. We still don't see an answer here, and the reason why is because we don't have anything in the answer field. So let's put something in the answer field. We have 5 times 3 is 15, plus 7 times 2 is 14. Add them together and we get 29. And 29 is the answer key. It's just a number, and that's all we need to type into there. If I test preview this now, we see this, which is much more like what we were expecting. If I type in 29, we'll accept it. Other numbers are not accepted. You can apply a tolerance around this. A numerical answer key. I'll show you an example of that and why you may want to do that. Let's put a tolerance. We use this tab in these curly braces to separate the numerical answer key from the numerical tolerance. If I change this to 1, this is going to be a tolerance of plus or minus 1. So the answer is going to be 29 plus or minus 1. That's going to be inclusive between 28 through to 30, any of the values that fall between that range. So if we type in 30, it's accepted. 29 point anything will also be accepted, and 30.1 should be rejected. That's what we would expect. Now, for this question, a tolerance of 1 doesn't make any sense. So we're going to change that. Before I do that, I want you to notice that when a student clicks into this answer box, it's going to tell them to enter a number. When I change the tolerance from 1 to 0, because of the type of calculation we have, this makes sense. There's only going to be one answer. It's 29. It's not going to be anything else. If I test preview this now, when a student clicks into this box, now that we've changed the tolerance to 0, it tells them to enter an exact number so that they know that they can't do any kind of approximation because we're not giving them any leeway. They've got to enter the exact number and that's it. It makes sense for this calculation. It may not make sense for others. So if we type in 29, it is accepted, but anything else other than 29 is rejected. This question is complete at this point. You could assign this question on an assignment. It's finished. This is all you need to do to create a basic numerical question. I'm gonna, yeah.
I have one quick question. So
sure.
when you create a question, you must type in everything by yourself. Will it work if I copy and paste one of my old documents in here and attach with some HTML comments in there?
Yeah, you can copy and paste into here from another document. If, for example, when I said writing out your question on paper, if you've typed it out in a text document, you should be able to copy and paste the text into here. If you have other things like math that's been marked up, that may not carry over from like a Word document or something, and you may have to retype that. But the basic text, such as complete the calculation, things like that, you can easily copy and paste that into the question field.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Austin, I have a question.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, I tried, like the question that Honli said, I tried to type because I had some calculus stuff I was trying to type. It didn't take it. I had to type it myself. Yeah, it didn't take it because it has some, you know, variable stuff there, like, because I was trying to type a question on so that the student can be able to graph maple. So at the end of the day, I had to make a file attachment because it was not able to type it. Because I put it, I copy and paste, it didn't take it. They say because the system cannot recognize it, only letters it cannot recognize variables. So that's why that question is very important.
Yeah, that's what I think I tried once. They don't.
No, it does not take it.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, you can copy and paste, but if you have things that are formatted in a language that it doesn't understand, if it has, you know, if you have X squareds or something in a Word document, that's not gonna copy and paste. But
exactly.
that's not gonna copy and paste into anything. This is like you're typing into a you know, the notepad. I mean, this and this are essentially the same. So anything that you could copy and paste into this notepad, you could put into there. But Word documents and other things that are going to be formatting it in another language, they're just not gonna, it's not gonna understand. You wouldn't be able to copy and paste that into any other kind of non-formatted document.
Maybe my experience is a little bit different. When I copy and paste, for example, maybe a question, of course, like you said, they're going to skip X squared or something because they are not compatible. But even I copy, for example, I copy from my question, complete the calculations here. That one even not going in. So that's why I asked.
I don't know why that wouldn't be working for you. What I would suggest if you're having that problem would be to contact support. I can't really think of any reason why that wouldn't be working. You should be able to copy and paste text into here. Okay, I'm going to move on and show you how to add random values to this question. So we've still got this question here. I could save it, for example. If I save it, it will indicate that the question has been saved. It'll tell me the name of the question and assign it a question identification number, or a QID, we call it. Let me just scroll through my notes. Okay. So let's start with this question we've already created. And I'm going to give us a little bit of space here and show you how we use Perl. Perl is used to save values to variables and make very basic mathematical manipulations on those variables. So add, subtract, multiply, divide. That's about all we use for the Perl programming, or at least all we'll use in this one. To open Perl, you use an EQN tag like this. And anything that's contained within this tag will be in the programming language of Perl. You give Perl operations to perform, and it performs those operations. Let's start by giving it some operations to perform. I'm going to give it a series of operations, and the operations we're going to give it are just numbers. I'm going to separate these numbers, these operations, by a semicolon. Call this a delimiter. This is separating out the different operations we're asking Perl to perform. So we have several operations that we've asked Perl to perform. And if we were to test preview this, we only see 9. And that's because an EQN tag will only export or only display the last operation that you've asked it to perform. In this case, the last operation we've asked it to perform is the number 9. Another method of putting values into Perl is a string or operations. So I'm going to replace the last 3 operations we've given Perl with a string. A string is 2 single quote here, and anything between the string will be a single operation or a single entity. So I'm going to change the last. So here I've got the string that spells the number 3. And so if I test preview now, it's going to display the last operation we have given Perl to complete, and that is the string of letters that spell the number 9. Now, we probably aren't going to want to display the values that we're calculating in Perl because they're going to be related to the answer key. So usually we want to hide this information from the student. And the way that we do that is we take the final operation in Perl and the contents of that string, I'm going to delete the contents of the string. So now this string is empty. It is an empty string or a null string. And if I test preview, now, even though I've got Perl performing operations, it will display the output from the last operation I've asked Perl to perform, which in this case is a string that contains nothing. It's an empty string. And so we don't see anything, which is desired. That's what we want. And so we use this. You'll see this if you've ever looked at WebAssign questions, you'll see something like this where we're always ending these EQN tags with this double apostrophe, double single quotes. And that's because we're using that to suppress the output from the Perl, and it just kind of keeps all that stuff hidden. Sorry, I gotta pull up my notes again. So there's another way that you can to call Perl. This one uses a single EQN tag. I'm going to split this up into an opening tag and a closing EQN tag. We close a tag by putting that / there. Now, anything between these 2 tags will be in Perl, just like we had before. The benefit of this, though, is that you can use this to add some vertical space between your different operations. And that lets you put them on different lines. Makes it a little bit easier to read. So usually when you look at a WebAssign question, you'll see some kind of EQN block up here. We usually end it with these 2 double single quotes at the bottom. One of the primary uses of Perl is to store values into Perl variables and then call those values later. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to save a few variables, make some Perl variables, save some values to Perl. To create a Perl variable, use the $, and then followed by 1 or more letters and numbers. Usually letters, but you can do letters and numbers. I'm going to create $A, and I'm going to assign the value 5 to it. So now $A is defined as 5. If I test preview this, we don't see anything because I've suppressed the output again of this EQN. If I replace this value here and I call that value of A, what I've done is I've created a single EQN tag. I've placed the Perl variable that we've previously defined as 5, and then I've closed the tag as a single tag. So what this will do is it will look up the value I've stored as A and display it there. If I test preview, we should see that. You'll notice that the value is displayed in red. This is expected, and when we go to randomize the values, this will help us see which values are random, which ones aren't. I'm going to create a few more Perl variables. I'll run through the alphabet. And I'm going to place these values into these Perl variables. Speaking of copying and pasting to save me some time, I'm going to copy and paste this into here so I can type this quicker. So I've stored the values that I previously had down here into Perl variables and then place those Perl variables down there. So if I test preview, we should see that nothing has changed. And that's sort of what we would expect. But now, if I change one of the values here, let's say that to 4, and I test preview it, that value will change here too. But it doesn't change the value in the answer key, and that's because the answer key isn't calculated. It's not saved in Perl. So now we're going to calculate the answer key in Perl. You can use more than one letter or number to define the Perl variable. So I could use A1, B4, or whatever. You could even spell out the words. So you could say first variable equals so forth. I'm going to use ANS to represent the answer key. This is a common convention in the way we create questions too. So the calculation here is A times B plus C times D. So that's what we're going to put in. A times B. And you'll notice that the multiplication is an asterisk. This is the way you would type it into an email to your colleague. Same thing with the addition. C times D. And if I replace this value here with the Perl variable and test preview it, we will find that now it is changed. The answer key is changed based on the value that we've changed here. So if I were to put this to a different number, I had 5 previously. If I change this to 6, the question changes algorithmically to match this. And again, this is another completely finished question. You could assign this to students.
Austin, can I
Yes.
ask a question? So when you set up a variable, for example, equal to 6, is there any possibility I set up a variable, for example, you pick up the range from 1 to 6?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to show you next. So, of course, once you've got this set up, you're probably going to want to randomize the values. So let's look at how we can do that. I'm going to, for A, I'm going to use a function, a Perl function, a special one for WebAssign that will create a random value between specified ranges. What we use is something called randnum, stands for random number. It expects 3 different arguments, a minimum value, a maximum value, and a count. Another way to sort of read this is you're saying that you want it to choose a random value counting from a value to a value and then counting by a particular number. So in this case, we're going to go from 1 to 4. And I want it to only use integers. I don't want it to use anything else. So I'm going to say count by 1. So what this is going to do is return 1, 2, 3, or 4. If I test preview this now, we'll get a random number in that first option. that first term, and everything will be calculated algorithmically, including the answer key, for exactly that same reason that we had before. It's calculated based on that random number. So now that we know how to do that, let's add a few more random values. I'm going to copy and paste again here. I'm going to give us a little bit of variety and go from 5 to 9 on a couple of these. 2. And if I test preview, we will now see that we have random values in each one of these, and the answer key is algorithmic. So if I click show new randomization, that's going to give me a different set of numbers each time. And this is complete. This is a completely algorithmic question. This has something like 200 permutations to it. So in a class of 100 students, it's unlikely that 2 students are going to get the same answer. This is all I'm going to show you for numerical mode today. If there are additional questions for numerical mode, I've got 2 other modes to show you. So we're going to do symbolic and some of the other stuff. Are there any questions about numerical mode right now before I move on to?
Can you close the window? Let me just take a picture of this. Let me see. Close the window. I want to see the code.
Just the code? Yeah.
No, just the
Here,
code.
hold on. I'll even make it bigger for you.
That's fine. Okay.
All right. So are there any other questions about numerical mode? I'm going to talk about multiple choice mode next. All right. So
could you talk about
yeah.
symbolic first?
I'm going to.
Because we don't do multiple choice in.
Yeah, we don't.
We're interested in symbolic.
I'm sorry?
We don't do multiple choice in our math department. We're only interested in symbolic.
I understand. I can skip that. However, the multiple choice has some important things in it that you could use for not just a simple choose from some options. This would be like in the middle of a sentence, they're choosing the word that would appropriately deal with that sentence. So some of the stuff I think actually could be valuable. It won't take me very long to go to multiple choice, and we'll still have plenty of time for symbolic.
Okay.
So bear with me. I'll go through it. I won't dwell on it too long. All right, saving the question we had before. I'm going to create a new question. Multiple choice. I'm just going to say MC example 3. I don't have the first 2, but that's it. So let's put some instructions into here. Determine the quadrant where the point 2, 4 is located. And then we'll give them the answer box like we had before. I'm going to put the answers in the answer field. It's going to be a little different than it was before. Quadrant. Let's use some Roman numerals. So we're going to put the different options here, 2, 3, and 4. So I've placed the correct option at the first, and the other ones are subsequent. These are all distractors. There's no limit to the number of distractors you can place in there. If I click test preview, we'll see that this is the correct option. The others are shuffled. We probably don't want that. So, or actually, sorry, this is finished. We may not want that, and this may not even be the best way to represent this question. So I'm going to change this to say the point is located in the blank quadrant. And here I'll say first, second, third, fourth. And again, I've placed these all as first, second, third, fourth in the order that this is the correct option. The other ones are the incorrect options. I test preview this. We're going to see that the this doesn't look right. This is sort of in the middle of the instructions and everything. So I'm going to use a couple of special Perl variables to make this look a little bit better. I'm going to open up Perl as I've done before, and the special Perl variable I'm going to use is called pull down. These are special Perl variables. You'll see one of these in symbolic mode as well. It's important that this one is capitalized. Usually capitalization matters. So if you see me capitalize something, it's important. This is just a 0 or 1 binary thing. It's a turning the switch on or off. If you don't have pull down in there, it assumes that it's 0. If you put pull down in, with 1, it will then change the format of the display to being a pull down menu. You can see that this was a lot easier for a student to read. We select first, that'll be marked correct. The options, we probably don't want them to display in this order because there's an inherent ordinality to them. We can use another special Perl flag to do called ordered. This will do 2 things. One, and again, it needs to be capitalized. It will set the number of multiple choice options in this order. They won't change. And it specifies which one of those options is the correct option. So in this case, the first one is the correct option. If I selected 3, then third would display as the correct option. Test preview this, and we see that this is all in a particular order, and you can select the correct option. This is all I'm going to show you for multiple choice. That's it, and we're going to move on to symbolic. But are there any questions about multiple choice? I at least wanted to give this to everyone as an option because this can be really valuable for even for advanced math classes. We see it in calculus and stuff.
Okay, can I take a picture of the code?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Always save your questions, of course. All right, let's go to symbolic mode. Thanks for bearing with me on that.
Austin, I have a quick question. What is
please.
I noticed under mode, you have symbolic and you also have algebraic.
Yes.
What's the difference between those two?
So symbolic mode is a much simpler version of a symbolic entry for students. It's easier to create those questions because they don't require any use of Mathematica, a computer algebra system that the algebraic mode utilizes. In order to use the algebraic mode, you have to write answer keys in Mathematica. We won't be covering algebraic mode in this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
If you have any other questions about any of these things that we're not covering in this presentation, my team's going to be available after this, for as long as you need us to answer any questions via email that you have. So if you want to learn how to create algebraic mode questions, we can send you some resources for that.
Yeah.
In most cases, symbolic mode is going to be enough. You probably will not need to use algebraic mode.
Got it. Thanks, Austin.
All right. I'm going to send a follow-up of a whole bunch of resources and things after this, including any questions you've asked me. I'm making notes, and I'll send you some links and resources from that help system I talked about earlier. All right, so let's choose symbolic. So for this question, we're going to have some instructions. We're going to ask, what is the equation of the line passing through?
Excuse me, Austin.
Yes.
Are you gonna reach where you're gonna have to enter, for example, suppose you have a trig equation, or for example, I want to graph a trigonometric function, okay, where there is shifted above a particular place. I want to break the analysis into several. Are you gonna treat those type of problems here rather than this writing stuff? Are you gonna treat them where, for example, let me say you have an algebraic equation, y equals, let me take a simple one, quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c. I want to find the equation of a line that goes through those points. Or I have a trig equation wherein I want to graph the graph of y equals sine 2x. But I want the student to break it into smaller bits so that they can get all these. Are you going to cover stuff like that here in this lesson today?
No, no. For something like that, I think that it would be more appropriate to have like a tutorial type question, a stepped question where the student is completing certain parts before they move on to latter parts. Like you said, where you're breaking it down for them. There are a lot of references and materials that I can send you after this. And again, we can continue to work with each person individually after this to help you create any questions that you want. So we're not, I mean, you're not going to be on your own after this. We're still going to be around to help you. And this, I think, will kind of get to some of to what you're saying. This is going to give you the understanding of how to create a symbolic question that you would then sort of put into that format, that stepped format that you can present to students.
What about questions that involve loops, where you have to create a loop? You're going to involve those type of questions also? When there is a loop, you know, you're gonna recall the variable. For example, if this is this, then you're gonna create a whole loop so that you know.
No, not in this presentation. No. And if you have additional questions or more advanced things that you want to talk about, we can always schedule another workshop too. I'm happy to talk to you more at another time about some of these other things.
Okay.
All right. So let me finish typing in this. Find the equation of the line passing through the points 0, 2, and 1, 6. I'm going to add one of those line breaks so we can see the question better. I'm going to have the student enter y equal, and then they're going to enter their answer. Just take a quick look at what we've got so far before I type in the answer key. This is what the student sees. So they'll type in the latter part of this function, the right-hand side, which is 4x plus 2. So when I enter there's more that I need to put into the symbolic answer key, but the answer key itself is very similar to how you would type in an email to a colleague. There are a couple of other things that I need to put in here. One is usually we have some sort of pad that has symbols and things that students can interact with. So I'm going to open up Perl, and I'm going to use one of the special Perl variables that we've used before, or similar to what we've used before. And I'm going to say pad equal, and then there's a string here. And this string is going to depend on the type of content you're using, physics, developmental mathematics, or calculus. I'm going to say calc here, calculus. This calls the calc pad or the calculus pad. This will give students the options to enter a variety of different symbols, functions, anything that they might need to submit their answer or format it. Another part of this is we have to define the variables that we're using. So in this case, there's only one variable, and it is x. So we put x and a colon between the answer key and the variables that we're declaring. If this answer required y and z or even a, you would list those as a comma separated list. Because this is only y is only having x, we would only include x in this one. So if I test preview this now, we have a completed symbolic mode question. If I click here, we'll see the pad pop up here in the right, and they can select whatever options they may need to use here. Students can also type out the things using their keyboard. I'm just typing something in to show you what that looks like. And this is a completely finished question as well. So that's, it also will accept any mathematically equivalent answer. So if 3x plus 2 plus x would also be accepted for this particular question. All right, that's what I'm going to show you here, and we've got about 12 more minutes, and I'm happy to answer.
Hold on. Yeah, I have before you close this program, I have a question.
Yeah.
How will you randomize this so that the thing keeps changing? I want you to put some randomization into this, please.
Yeah, sure. You would randomize this in the same way that you would any other type of question. You would randomize the values here. Let's see. So you would create an EQN.
Okay.
block here, like we did before. And you would randomize these values
Okay.
here. So let's say if I wanted to, let's say Y1, I want to randomize that to between 2 and 6.
Okay.
I would do something like this.
Okay.
Now I haven't done the answer key, so I'm just going to show you what it looks like here. But you see here that would randomize this value. So likewise, as we did previously, we would then randomize the coefficients that we would need here. And this is where it would be valuable to have worked this out on paper beforehand and have that solution, because then you could just type in what the let's see, you've probably got so you could do. And this would be like M answer. This is the slope of the answer. And you would put whatever the calculation would be of the slope of that. And in terms of, you know, the Y's, it would be something like, what do we have here? 6 minus Y1 over the X's.
Okay.
I'm not going to type that out completely there, but you get the idea. This is how you would do the slope. And again, the y-intercept would be, or the intercept of the answer would be similar. For here, you would type in whatever the calculation for the intercept would be based on these values. And at that point, you would then just look at it and it would all be randomized algorithmically. But this is a good example of what I was talking about, of starting with the basic framework of the question and then adding the randomized bits. But you can easily add the randomization to this question too.
So can we get the original code when it was not randomized so that I can take a picture of it? The one that you did?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Let me take a picture of it. At least it's going to be a good place to start, right?
Like this?
Yes, it's a good place without the randomization. Without the randomization.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Give me 1 second. I gotta.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. There you go.
Yeah. So can you test? Let's see if it is.
Yeah. Let's see what it looks like.
Okay, go back. Let me take a picture. That's a good place to start. No, the code. Okay, thank you. Let's say. Okay, I took it. Thanks.
Yeah, and again, these examples, since you're finding some examples, the examples that you'll find in here are really, really good. So if I typed in symbolic, creating answer keys for questions using symbolic mode, this is going to have a lot of different code and everything. Here, you've got subscripts where the student is expected to enter X sub 1, X sub 2, Y sub 1, Y sub 2. This is some of the examples of what the notation would look like in the answer key, what the math would look like. So subscripts, use that. Several other examples of how to do, so if you wanted to do square roots in symbolic mode, absolute values, Greek letters, factorials even, exponentials, logs, your sign functions and everything are here as well. That you could use in symbolic mode. This has all of those examples here, and there should be, let's see. Yeah, so there should be in many of these questions examples like this. And you can take any, and I say you, any instructor can take these names of these template questions. I'm copying that, and I'm going to search for that question name. And here it is. This is the example question that they had. So you can view this, but you can also duplicate this question. It'll open it into the answer, into the question editor. You'll see all of the code. You can modify this code on your own. And these template questions are a really, really good resource to use if you're trying to find some examples to work with. And you can then save these questions to your own course and do whatever you would want to do to modify these questions. This is what this one would look like to the student.
Austin, I would like to ask, what's the difference between answer and solution?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So here I've got this question here. It's duplicated. Let's see. Let me bring out what the solution here. So here you could type in a solution that the student would see. So it would be like a worked solution. Let me see if I can find. I'm just trying to find a question that may have a solution already. Brock, do you have one that you could just send me?
I can poke around.
Yeah, just anything that's got a solution would be handy. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
While you are, waiting for the thing to come. Now, I have a basic thing here. How will you type, for example, I was trying to create a problem, for a parabola that goes through 3 points. How will you type? Because when I type y equals x squared, it comes out, it does not come as an exponent, it comes out like a carat what? How will you type it so that it comes out like x squared? There are two different stuff.
Yeah. There are two different ways you can do that. And let me just, actually, this is a good example here. So you'll see that we have some math markup here. So we've got these subscripts, these questions with subscripts. That's the opposite of what you're trying to do, superscripts.
Yes, I want like x squared, something x squared.
Yeah. So there's two different ways you could do it. One, you could say x and then use HTML, which I don't really recommend. So this is the superscript code for HTML. That's
X
really,
squared.
Yeah, that's really cumbersome. So I won't recommend it, but that's one way you could do it. Another way is using something called LaTeX, and that is it's actually easier if I just show it to you here. Examples notation here. So this is similar to LaTeX if you've used LaTeX. It's very similar in the syntax, but it renders it as HTML. This is kind of a proprietary thing. And I'll show you how you can get this caret here. All you need to do is, let me get a new question here. Sorry, I'm gonna use something to type this out very quickly. So here, what I've done is I have created a LaTeX tag. And then just like LaTeX, you've got something that opens up math mode. And in LaTeX, I think it's $signs. We use this instead of $signs because we use a lot of Perl. It's a lot less confusing. So anything in between here is going to be in math mode. And so here I type in x caret squared, and it will simply display it as such.
Hold on, let me take a picture, please.
Yeah, of course. So this is one of the things that I'll send as to everyone after this, so that you have this to refer to, this type of documentation. And I'll send you this, like I just showed you. This here, this has all the different types of things that you may want to enter. So even stuff that's, here's something you can copy and paste, by the way.
Okay.
That could be valuable. You can copy and paste from the documentation and see that's what it would look like there. Looks like we're close to the end. Are there any other questions? Again, I will follow up with a lot more resources, and if we need some more conversation, we can set up another time to talk to.
So Austin, go back to the original question that at the beginning of our meeting. So is it possible you can show me real quick, how do I check a student's IP address? Where do they take the test?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let me do that real quick. I'm going to go to one of my courses here, just one of my demo courses here. Let's go to scores. All right, so I've navigated to one of the students' assignments. There's this, you've probably seen all this stuff here. Log info, this button here, if you click that, it'll take you to a page that will tell you everything the student has done interacting with this particular assignment. So tells you the IP address from which it was downloaded. Every time that they access the assignment, it'll log their IP address. Every instructor has access to this. This isn't something that's hidden. You can also see the timestamps related to when they were accessing things and also to when they were submitting the work, both saving specific questions and submitting specific questions.
Yeah, I checked this. I already reviewed this, but how do I know the IP address? This one is matching with the email address at the top.
That's not something you can do, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because I already checked this information. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know. If
So what you could, yeah, I mean, in this situation, if you think that maybe the student is accessing their, you could look, for example, look at the different IP addresses. There's like websites that'll tell you where this IP address is located and stuff like that. So if you look on a single student's IP address and you see a list of IP addresses and you see that it's bouncing between one side of town and the other side of town very quickly, that's something you could indicate, you know, that there's someone else, there are two people accessing this one account. But it's hard to really link it to email, because someone could send an email from one IP address and then you know, send it from a different one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Austin,
right.
I have a question for you. I have one more question. Now, if a student is taking a test, how will you stop that test? Because if, for example, the student is on Zoom, you suspect that student is cheating. You want to stop the test immediately, because in my MATLAB, I can stop a test when the student is taking a test. I will just go in, I go to individual student settings, then I'll go reduce the time, then the test will shut down, then the student will talk to me. They're going to resolve everything, they will continue back. So how will I do it with my WebAssign?
I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. I can think of a few ways, but I think that's something I should probably consider and ask some of my colleagues and get a better answer for you. Because as you know, this whole situation is pretty new to us too. People proctoring exams over Zoom, for example, isn't really something we've had to deal a lot with. So let me make note of that, and I'll send you an email once I've gotten some better guidance on that, if that's okay with you.
And yes, and also the individual student setting, because I see that this is one of the trouble with WebAssign. If they don't try to find a way where we're gonna get individual student setting, I can go in and make an individual student setting while the other students are going on. It's gonna come, because there you can only put a single password. Then after that password, you're gonna keep changing the password. How will I get an individual student setting when I can set it for a particular student while the other students are busy doing other stuff? Is there?
Okay. No, I understand.
Yes, please.
I understand. I'll see if I can. Yeah, I'll ask and see if I can find. It may be that one of my colleagues already has encountered this type of issue and has an idea, but I'll find out and get back to you.
Please, please.
Of course. Any other questions? Yeah.
And also,
go ahead.
even the lockdown browser, the students are finding a way to get out of that browser, because the only way I will know that is just the login. I'll see that they have logged in twice, but they can get in out of the lockdown browser and open another thing. This test still will continue. So how will we secure that lockdown browser where it blocks them from everywhere? They just concentrate or the test will shut down. Is there a way the engineers will work out something like that? Because to me, the lockdown browser is nothing. It's not working. It's not working at all.
The lockdown browser isn't something that we have created. That's another product that we recommend to use for this. But we're always trying to improve the way in which it interacts with WebAssign. So if you've encountered problems like that, let us know about them, because we will look into seeing if there's some way that we can recommend a better way to set that up for you. And if you're finding that students are consistently getting around it, that's not something we want either. So we'll do what we can to improve that. Like I said, though, lockdown browser, I'm not an expert on that, but I do know people that are. So I'll talk to them and see if they have some suggestions.
Oh, they go out of it so easy. They go out of it within 2 seconds. They go out of it, and the test still continues. So yeah, that's the problem.
Anyone else have any other questions? We're a little over time. It's fine with me.
Austin, I have a question here. Are you
Yeah,
going to,
please.
are you going to send it a contact information, or you are giving it to us now? You said you'll give us some contact.
I'll send you an email after this that has resources and some questions that have come up and answered with some of the resources I've shown you. So how to access that WATEC and stuff like that. Some of the things I've shown you on the screen here today, I'll send you an email with the links and all that stuff to it too.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and you guys, you know where to find me too. So this is, you know, like I should I want to be your first point of contact because I want to be in the loop about everything. I'll make sure, you know, getting your questions answered and all that too. So, but thank you so much, Austin. You're wonderful.
Yeah, of course. Brock, did you have anything else you wanted to add since you're here too?
No, I don't have anything.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate this. Thanks, Megan. I'll send an email probably today. If not, it'll be Monday. But it'll have a ton of resources and stuff. And also, you'll know how to contact my team. Megan knows how to get in touch with our team. So don't be afraid to send us any additional questions you have.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Austin.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, you guys. I miss
Thank
you
you,
all
Thank you,
so
Megan.
much.
Thank you, Austin.
Bye.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Have a good weekend.
See ya.